Data is all around us, but how do we use it to make informed decisions? In this video, Jose, engineer at Real Estate API, will uncover which markets have had the most flipping activity last year. Together, we will deep dive into the insights and how he was able to aggregate the data to come up with these conclusions. All right, let's get started. Hey, Jose, so happy that we're finally back again, co-hosting on the channel. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Yeah, super excited to be discussing a very hot topic, which is flipping activity. And some of the reasons why this is so important to gauge is it helps to understand a market, what's coming on as inventory, which supply and demand right now, there's not that much supply. So flips help us to gauge this a bit more. As well, it could help with emerging areas. If a
Right.
particular area is becoming revitalized, there could be a lot more activity too. So I'm really excited to dive into this and would love to hear a little bit about how you gather this data and some of your insights.
Sure. So yeah, this first of all, the data that I'm using is courtesy of realestateapi.com. I am one of their engineers over there, so I'm super excited to be able to have access to to this data and be able to share some of these insights on the podcast. But there's a feature in the Real Estate API that that's kind of a flip indicator of sorts, right? We have a feature where you can search for properties that have been where the previous owner held the property for an X number of months. And so what I did here is I went and looked at all 2023, so January 1st, 2023 to December 31st. And we're looking at properties that where the previous owner held that property for 6 to 12 months, but then also where there was a profit made from the previous owner to the current owner, right? Like in between those two last sales. So the first thing I want to show is this table that it's organized by the state where most properties have that flip indicator count. So it's going to be most properties where the previous owner owned the property for 6 to 12 months. And then also we normalize this by the size of the state. Right. So, and we're only counting SFR, MFR properties, so single family residences, multifamily residences, in these states. And so we're looking at Arizona, Georgia, and Florida, kind of as our three top states. And then what I did is I mapped those, where those properties were. Right. So let's take a look at Arizona. And I
Great.
guess as I'm scrolling down, do you have any questions, comments on that table? We can come back to it.
Yeah, I think just to reiterate that what you said. So it's not like these flippers who come in, rehab a place, and then sell it actually like tell the county or something, hey, this was a flip. So
Right.
you're instead deriving that via looking at different attributes of a data, including the owner and time period as well.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's a good point. This is, it's not, we call them indicators because we really don't know whether they're flips or not. We can come to a pretty certain conclusion that, based on some of the data points that we have, that it was possibly a flip, but you're never 100% sure. Either way, I think this is a good indication for areas where the market is pretty hot, just because this is also showing how many properties were sold and in the last 12 months. So yeah, I mean, looking at the map, when we look at Arizona, for example, I'm gonna zoom in here. So we're looking at like the Phoenix and surrounding areas. Um, we're also looking at Tucson down in the south. Um, and then so there's a little pocket in Flagstaff. Right. And I'm not super familiar with Arizona as far as like, what's going on in these cities. But something that I found interesting was that there's a lot of activity like over in the border, of the state. So that's kind of the hot spots in Arizona. And like I said, I'm not super familiar with the state and what's going on in those cities, but I found it really interesting that bordering like California and Nevada, there's some hot spots there, and obviously Phoenix, is a big metroplex. So
Yeah, I think this is really powerful, being able to not just see the data in a table with rows and columns, but actually visualize where are these flips occurring. And as you said, right by the border is very interesting. As we know, a lot of people in California have migrated over to the Arizona and Nevada areas. And I think it's interesting that by the border, if you zoom in again, I think one of them was Lake Havasu, perhaps. So
yeah,
this could even be an indicator of concentration of short-term rentals perhaps that are maybe being flipped um, for that strategy. So by looking at the flipping activity, I think it helps not only to concentrate on different cities and different areas, but also based on what the investor strategy could be as well.
right, exactly. So so we just did the top three states. Looking at the map for Georgia,
Wow.
and you see it's really active, yeah. And so the activity, obviously, Savannah is going to be one. Let me zoom back in. So the Savannah area, which is on the coast, and then Brunswick, which is also on the coast, and surrounding areas. But then also, if we go kind of in the middle of the state, um, this heavy activity is going to be in the Atlanta area.
Yeah, and I think this is really telling to what I've been hearing across different news sources and investor groups that Atlanta has really come over the peak of, when you say an area is, potentially up and coming or maybe a next hotspot. This was said about Atlanta, say, 10 years ago. And now what we could see is that Atlanta itself has so much development, but also the surrounding areas. It makes me also question if maybe some folks have been pushed out that originally were from like inner Atlanta to
Right.
more affordable areas around. And that's why those areas have had a lot more flip activity because there's more demand. But this is a great indicator to at least start to think about those things.
Yeah, for sure. And also, one thing that I noticed between the two states is that near the borders, there's also little pockets of activity. So
Yeah,
you see, Columbus over right next to Alabama, and then up in the northern border of the state, there's also a heavy concentration of activity. So, that's something that I noticed that kind of repeats from state to state.
very interesting. I wonder
So
if be like migrating from state to state, it's more preferred to be by the border because you can kind of get back maybe
right.
to family on the other side. But
Right, exactly. Or maybe there's just easier access to other destinations, whether it's
right.
like um entertainment or just places to go. I just thought it was really interesting. But yeah, I mean Atlanta is really growing. I've heard just around that, that people are really moving out there. So yeah, it's interesting to see the data actually, back that up.
Love it.
So the last map that I have is for Florida, and you're more familiar with this state, um, and so Florida, even though in the charts it was the third state, this is really the most active state. Actually, it's just we normalized it for the state size, but just by the numbers, this is actually the state where most or with the highest number of sales that I found. So um, and the activity is going to be along the coasts. Of course, that's where everybody wants to be. And then so we'll start on the
My
west
side,
side
yes.
of the state. Yeah. So um, if you have any insights into, I know the Tampa area is super active, and then surrounding areas, and then on the other side, Miami and surrounding areas. So
Yes, it's pretty spot on from what I expect. So if you have your mouse over Tampa,
mhm,
yep. So that the city has had a lot of redevelopment, and from what I've seen, even like old style bungalows from the 1940s have just been demolished with brand new homes on top. So taking those properties out, having a flat lot and adding a brand new home, I've also seen. St. Petersburg, very in line with what my expectations are, which is more volume towards the bottom half of St. Petersburg, since there's been a revitalization there of their downtown. As well, they're redoing the Rays Stadium there, which kind of mad about that because they're supposed to do it in Tampa, but that's okay. Um, and if you zoom out ever so slightly, so I just talked about those two cities, Tampa and St. Pete, but for the whole metro area, you could see on the right-hand side that there's also activity, but mostly towards Tampa. So the Brandon area, Riverview, which your mouse is nearby. And then going a bit more south, there's like a blank part where there's not really much activity.
And
So that,
this area,
yep, that's like Palmetto, Ruskin, and those originally used to be more like farmlands. So I
okay,
can see that there's not flipping activity because instead what's happening is just new construction developments entirely.
right, right.
So yeah, this
Yeah,
map looks very accurate.
good, good. Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts, on it since you're very familiar with this area. And then obviously on the other side, on the other coast, it's kind of the same story. Um, the groups are really, really concentrated, like around Miami, Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah.
uh, Palm Beach. So and it kind of goes all the way down, and then there's that break at the bottom of the state, which and obviously the around the Everglades.
Excellent. Yeah. No flipping activity in the Everglades where
Yeah.
a chance to get taken out by a gator.
Yeah, and then a good number also down in the Keys. You see some dots down there. So some activity down there as well. And then again, just kind of going back to what we were talking about, bordering with other states. Um, Not as much in Florida because I think everybody wants to be on the coastline. But I think it's a pretty special case, versus being more inland.
Great, great insights. Yeah, I love that you were able to not just plot the data, but be able to look at it based upon ratios, as you showed above in that table, to then know which states to concentrate on.
Yeah, and the data from Real Estate API makes it super easy to do this kind of analysis. I actually only used one of the endpoints that Real Estate API offers, property search, and if we can, I'll actually we can share like the queries that I use to make this analysis and just kind of like how this page was built. Which thank you so much for getting me on to um,
Streamlit.
this framework. Yeah, right. I'm super excited about it. It's like my new favorite thing.
Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, let's dive into the technical implementation a little bit more.
Yeah,
So front end, you were able to use Streamlit to kind of showcase everything rather than it being in a Jupyter notebook.
yeah. So
Awesome.
Dreamweaver made it super easy to build this presentation, right? Because I mean, I was getting the data back from the API. I actually, I cached all these calculations, all these counts, just so I wouldn't be making, the same calls over and over as I was building this and building the maps. But yeah, I mean, Streamlit was really cool to work with. This is kind of the first time that I've seen it around, and you've talked to me about it before, but this is the first time that I've been using it. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's really cool.
Yeah, great to hear. And then going towards the actual logic, we kind of walked through it already, but I think it's really important to note, especially for those who are seeking to learn more about getting into Python or are experienced and looking to develop their own tools, that if you're trying to solve for a problem in this example, how much flipping activity has occurred, instead of trying to just go for the end result and search on Google flipping activity, it's really important to try to deconstruct the problem and think, well, what makes up flipping activity? And from
Right.
there, you can, like you did, created your own unique indicator to be able to do so by taking different variables together. I think that's a really great, powerful aspect of your API in that there's so much breadth and information that you could really make so many different indicators to assess a market.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's really cool to be able to, to have access to that data. And then it's super fast to pull this kind of analysis just because of the feature set that is built into the API. Yeah, so in putting together this project, both the UI and the data side, it just came together really quickly, which really allowed me to really think through, well, what would we consider a flip, and then how do we get the best data possible as far as like how do we comparing from state to state
Right.
because of the different sizes and different number of residences in that state.
Excellent. So, Jose, let me throw a use case at you. So, let's say I'm a data scientist and I'm partnering with someone who's a flipper. I'm trying to get into real estate, so I'm looking to build out tools for them so they can assess their market and if they're going to maybe a new market, where they should be flipping. So, in this particular use case, the flipper currently flips in Tampa, but they're maybe looking into Lakeland, Florida. So only about hour drive or so. How deep can we get with this data? Are we able to look at the cities or even down to baby streets to understand where flipping activity is happening?
Yeah, we are. We're actually able to, to go all the way to the street level, neighborhood level. So we can really look at, is this an area, for example, for the area that I'm in, the Midtown area is really popping off.
Mm.
And so, you can get to that level of like, okay, let me just take a look at this part of the city and see what the activity looks like. I'm not showing it on this analysis, but the data also includes what do profits look like from sale to sale.
Oh, wow.
uh, so we can take a look at not only how long that potential flip took, but also what was the profit of that the flipper.
Very valuable information because there's a lot of negative profit. We probably maybe want to stay away from that area for flipping. Another question. So on the flip side, now if I'm a data scientist helping out a wholesaler, someone who brings deals over to flippers as well, what is information that I can provide? Like, would I be able to see who was behind each of the flips and let the wholesaler know who to maybe send their list to?
Yeah, we can actually see, all kinds of details that are super helpful. Right. So we can see for the previous cell, for example, we can see whether it was a corporate owner or like an institutional,
Right.
whether it was an individual, and then same thing for the next sale, right? So we can see, is this like a large corporation picking all these up? Is this individuals? We can also take a look at like what are the characteristics of the properties, and that way we can see what people are looking for, right? So if the inventory, it's all single family residences of X number of bedrooms, X number of bathrooms, we can kind of see what people are looking for in the market in that way.
That's really great insight. I bet you probably see some iBuyers as well.
Yeah, we definitely do. And there's actually a feature in the API that is it's called linked properties. And what linked properties does is it actually shows you like a portfolio for the owner. So you can take a look at, especially those institutional buyers, how many properties and where those properties are that they're purchasing.
Great insight. Any other tips or tricks that people should be aware of? And as well, how would they get access to this app or even be able to create something off of the same data?
So we'll publish this app on the podcast. We'll add a link to that, and like I said, I'll actually share the I'll put together the repo and publish it so people can see like how the queries were built for the API. So if they do have API access, they can run the same analysis. To get API access, head over to realestateapi.com. And there's a link to book with one of our data experts, and we'll get you started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jose. And for those that want to see us do a deep dive on flipping activity in their market, please comment below what your market is and we'll look into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And if if anybody wants to um, do some suggestions of where we should take this analysis, we can definitely go deeper.
Definitely. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.